Hello and welcome to Mr. Saucedo's YouTube videos. We're going to be talking about acids and bases. It's a really short lesson today. So some polar substances. So we talked about the difference between polar and nonpolar last time. Some polar substances can form acids and bases in water. So we're going to talk about the acid part first, and then we'll talk about the bases afterwards. So first things that you need to know here is that the pH scale was devised by chemists over the course of several decades of study and research, and it ranges from 0 to 14. More often than not, people forget that 0 is actually the lowest number on the pH scale. A lot of people just assume it's 1, and it isn't, it's 0. And so what is an acid? So there are many definitions of acids and bases, but in biology, we really only care about one, okay? And that is that acids are substances that release hydrogen ions. So when we say hydrogen ions, we mean H+. That's what we're referring to. And so we're also almost always dealing with water when we're talking about biology. So if a substance releases hydrogen ions into water, then it's going to be considered an acid. And so pH-wise, what are we talking about? We're talking about things that have a pH less than 7. And so yes, that could even be 6.99999. That would be slightly acidic, but you get the idea. Anything lower than 7 is considered an acid. So what do we know about acids? Well, acids taste sour, right? I mean, if we look at the pH scale here, we're somewhere between 0 and 7, right? It has to be less than 7. And so most acidic substances are things like, lemon or orange, technically, I guess, grape. All of those would be examples of acids, and most of them would taste sour to you. Acids react with metal and they burn. That's another pretty common attribute for acids. And strong acids tend to have pH values between 0 to 3. And again, tend, this is in a chemistry class. We're not going to go into the details of strong acids, but you kind of get the idea. Also, here are some examples. We have stomach acid, we have battery acid. Those are some examples of very strong acids. And before you ask, is there any pH less than 0? Yes, there is, but we're talking about in water. So in water, it has to be 0 to 14. But if we decide to use a different substance, yes, there are pH values that can go less than 0. You can get into the negatives, and you can get more than 14. We're just not talking about water anymore at that point. We're not talking about mixing something with water. Okay. So what about bases? Bases are substances that remove hydrogen ions. So they take hydrogen ions away, and they have pH values greater than 7. So just like I said, we had 6.99999, which could be a very, very, very weak acid. You could have something like 7.000001, and that would be a very, very, very weak base, and it would be slightly basic, but still you get the idea. So bases taste bitter. We're talking about things that, again, have a pH that's greater than 7. And so those tend to be things like soap, bleach, cleaning solutions, things like that. And they tend to taste very bitter. Bases react with oil and grease. They do feel slippery. And strong bases tend to have pH values between 12 and 14. Some good examples of strong bases are things like bleach, ammonia, which is a type of cleaning solution. If you've ever had an aquarium before and it starts to smell horrible because you haven't cleaned it in a while, that's ammonia. Fish release ammonia when they go to the bathroom. We release, urine. They release ammonia. Most reptiles release uric acid. So it's just all in the same family. It's a nitrogenous waste product, but still you get, again, you get the flow now of what we're talking about. And then last but not least, neutral substances have a pH of exactly 7. So we're talking 7.000000000, and only pure distilled water has a